Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. Okay, let's go. We're working on our 20 charity journals plus the extra one, number 21, which will be our prototype that I will share the construction of with you guys. And then I'll have one as an example in the future of what we did. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed. We've had a couple sessions together. Gabrielle and I have had 2 days together, and then there was a Saturday night where I had the 4 girls together that we all did little things towards the project. So where we are at, around the time that I post this video, you will see a little short video about how I create my coffee dyed paper using Parisian essence. Now I did heaps of the paper and I used most of it to back ephemera pieces that are going to be used in the journal. So what I mean by that is pages of bits and pieces that needed paper glued to the back, and then these are all cut out and will be used to stuff the journals with bits for everyone to play with. So I thought I had enough paper. I had done 3/4 of a ream, so hundreds of pieces, but I'm still left with about 1.5 inches of printed pages that are yet to have the backing put on. So I had to do it all again. Thought I'd turn the camera on and show you what I do to create my coffee dyed paper. I think it's quite efficient. It's using Parisian essence, so I can get the color I want and I can control the color tone if I want it dark or light according to how much water I add or essence. So that video will be posted around the time of this video. So if you're wondering how I create my paper, that's also going to be posted out there as well. So just want to now go to a few little components of our number 21 journal and make them with you, because the girls are coming at the end of this week and I want to get the next stage along so that I've got my prototype ready and we don't have to think too hard and we can enjoy the evening and create some more bits and pieces for our journal. So what I'm working on at this minute is all of the ephemera elements. So I'll quickly show you this bit and then show you where we're up to in this section of the journal. I hope this all makes sense. It's a bit crazy. I've got one left to glue on here. So what I do when I make mine is all of these elements, I must say, are from my Porch Prints. I decided to stick with the one Etsy store or one business because it just all tones together and there's so much variety there, from bunnies to owls to just vintage looking elements. So I'll give you a bit of a thumb through of some of the pieces that I've created once we do this little step, because they're actually drying under my craft mat as we speak, but I left one out to show you what I do to create the backed pieces. So I've got my Parisian dyed paper, my printout. First thing I do is I trim off any excess paper. Because it's A4, gluing on A4, just by trimming it down a little bit, I can now see my boundaries. Plus, when I turn it over, I can use the coffee dyed or Parisian dyed paper underneath to catch any glue, so my table stays relatively clean. Occasionally I do get a little rambunctious with my gluing, but I can come right up to the edge of that paper and add my glue. So the first thing I do is around the outer edge, around the outer edge, and then work my way through the center. I really like the blue in the stick because I can see exactly where I am. And once I've done one layer, I do a second layer. You want these pieces to stick. So I'm very fussy about how much of this I put on because I love to know that they are going to hold up. The last thing we want are these pieces falling apart for everyone. Then I turn it over. I hold my fingers in opposite corners and then just lower it down in position. And because we trimmed off that little bit of excess paper, you can easily see where to place it. get your burning tool out or a credit card, just to smoosh it down to make sure there's no lumps and bumps, and any excess will pop out on the outer edge. Then it's a case of giving it a quick trim again, because if there's excess that has oozed out, you're not making the bottom side of your mat all yucky and sticky. So there's sort of 2 trims I do. You can see there that the glue has come out the top of my scissors there. So that's now going to be in the bin and away. So keeping my table nice and clean. If there is anything there, I just do a little wet one, just to make sure that I haven't got any mess anywhere. Okay, so that's my piece. Once I've done that second trim, I turn it over and I give it another burning down, or using your credit card. The reason I do that is paper is like fibers. So once you wet it on one side, it starts to pull the paper on, how do I explain this? It starts to warp the paper. So if we're doing this side is starting to get all distorted because we've moistened it. So by flipping it over, you help those fibers to go back into a position that now matches the other side. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I just noticed that by doing that second process, now my paper already is really straight and becoming quite firm. The next step is underneath my glass mat, I've got a huge big green cutting board from my quilting days. It's oversized and it allows me to go to the side over there and slide this under the mat. So now I've got the weight of the mat sitting on all of those elements to help them to dry, and I'll leave them there for about an hour. Then I pull them out and put them on my desk somewhere for a couple hours. I try not to touch them at all, because if that contact where the glue and the papers meet breaks, you get an air bubble and you can feel it, and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel very professional. So that's my hot tip with gluing the paper to ephemera that you may have printed out. So I'll just bring this into view while we wait for that to dry. We've been busy. Oh boy, have we been busy. The pages have all been glued and backed and cut out. So that's what we did Saturday night. There was 4 of us on scissors, cutting and cutting and cutting. I did try to get them to trim where I could round the edges of things, but you know, the attention span of everyone was less than desired. So some got done, some didn't. It's a little bit all over the place, but it doesn't matter. To have them cut and bagged into 21 or 20 little bags ready to go is just fantastic. So that was a huge step in our process. In amongst the papers was a huge card. It's a postcard that is on one of the pages. Just excuse me as I rummage around here to find the page, especially if you guys want to use it in some journals. I'm just having a look through the glued pieces from under my mat. This one here, this is the page. This element here, as you can see, is so much bigger than our journals, so they had to be all trimmed down. So that was another little job we got done. So there's 20 of those ready, and they'll fit perfectly into a side tuck. So that was another little job for someone to sit there and slice all of those. These are the pieces that I've had under my mat drying, so we might flip through them next. So you can just have a look at some of the designs I've chosen from my Porch Prints to use in the journal. So that one there is a collection of postcards, great for journal cards. And of course that one I had to cut down a little bit because it's just a little bit too big. That was the one I just did a few minutes ago, so I'll get that back under the mat. It's a beauty because it gives us stamps, it gives us some miniature postcards and just some random pieces of ephemera. A lot of these little elements I'll actually put into envelopes that are in the journal so that they have something to play with as well. So let me just get that back under the mat because it's still drying and I don't want it to fail on us. That's another one, 4 little journal cards. And this one, I think these are all part of one particular kit within the My Porch Print pack. This envelope is really good. It's she's had an old envelope and opened it up and then copied it onto the print. So what we'll do is we'll leave it folded and create something out of it on a piece of ephemera that can be added into the journal, like a flip or a wrap around a page element, something like that. Some more postcards, just a different size with a bit of antique writing. This is one of my favorites. It's just fantastic little filler for pockets. So some little tags at the top, some medium size, and then some down the bottom as well. So with some holes added and some eyelash yarn or some sort of fabric, they just come up beautifully. So I've got a couple of those printed just in case we need some spares. This is a owl one, Owls and Roses I think it's called. So each of the journals will have 4 of those. I think there's 2 designs. Then in this particular journal I went with bunnies. So I went through the bunny kit and printed out some pages that were all bunny related. But there's a bird pack, a butterfly pack. Oh, there's so much. And I sort of have mixed them up a little bit as well because you don't want it all bunnies. This is part of a butterfly one that's in the store. So I just picked out some pages that sort of caught my eye. Another one of the little tags where you get quite a few ready to go. And this one is a bird page from one of the bird kits. Each kit has like 10 to 15 pages of ephemera that you can choose from. So I just sort of picked my favorites and I tried to pick things that were a decent size so that the people can write on the back of them or we can create flips out of them, all sorts of things. So that's the ephemera. Each journal has a combination of this. Slightly different in some cases, especially if it's a journal that has a lot of yellow through it. I might have gone into bees and butterflies more so than the pink birds and the pink rabbits. So they're all slightly different, but same. Okay, I'll pop them back under my mat because I can still feel that there's moisture in there. Now, another thing that we got done is each journal will have 2 envelopes. So we've gone and backed them with the paper so they're nice and solid, and then before we closed them we got on the sewing machine and stitched around each journal. It took ages, but it is so worth it to have that little bit of stitching there. And there's our paper from the inside. So we went through and glued them all together and then cut them out and then did this little bit of stitching on all of them. So we've got 20 little envelopes there, and then this was the second envelope. Same thing, we've stitched them once we put the paper on the inside, and they're a nice thickness. And I think we've got a couple combinations here just in case there's one that's a little different color. No, they're all the same except for that one's from they're just upside down. So we've got our 20 envelopes. They will have bits and pieces in them for the person that receives the journal to play with. So that little job's done. Envelopes are stitched and ready to go. I've got 2 envelopes for my journal ready to go. So they're sitting there waiting to be added. Now, if you remember rightly, we gave Gabrielle some homework. She was going to hand sew these 3 little clusters together. So she had a prototype. They're the 3 for my journal, so I need to keep them separate. I'll just bring them up to the camera. So they've come up really well. And she just slowly worked her way through them, and 3 by 20 It's a lot of stitching, but she said she thoroughly enjoyed it because it wasn't something she would normally do in her journals, so it sort of was really fun, she felt. We do have a purple journal in amongst our range, so I gave her a couple little purple flowers to put on a few just to sort of theme it even more to the journal, but the rest are neutral. Now we will add some beads and things to them once we get closer to adding them to the journal and get a feel for the colours. So they'll all get a little bit more embellishing to really link them to the journal. But look at them all. She is such a legend, that girl. Absolutely fantastic. So much work. 20 journals. It's just an epic task. But if you break it down and share the tasks with everyone, or start early, so you do a little bit each week on them, before you know it, you've got all of your bits and pieces ready to go. So homework completed by Gabrielle. Good girl, good girl. So she's made all of the clusters. The envelopes are stitched. We've got a heap of the ephemera glued, cut out. It's not embellished yet, as in stitched and fibers and textiles added. That'll come at a later date, but just to get it glued and cut out is a start. I'm just going to shut the video for a second because I want to grab a pile of ephemera that's yet to be glued, just to flip through it to show you some other options with my Porch Prints. Won't be a moment. Okay, I'm back. This is, because I ran out of paper, this lot is yet to be done. So I just thought I'll grab it and flick through it because it might just give you some other ideas of what you could potentially use in journals of the future. You've already seen this page, so we'll skip that one. I mentioned there was a butterfly pack. This is the butterfly one. So in here I've printed some random pages multiple times and using the theme butterflies. So we'll just flick through this quickly. I don't want to waste too much time on all of this either because I do want to start actually constructing this journal because, as I said, the girls are coming. Oh, they're not needed at this stage. I got my sizing wrong because I think these are from Artie Mays. They're a little bit big, but I'll back them anyway and just put them to one side so that they're ready for a future project. These are some postcards with lots of roses on them. I'm not even convinced these are my Porch Prints, to be honest. But these potentially will be on the front of the journal as a little title plate, just to decorate it up, and then the smaller versions of it. So lots of those. Some postcards. Heaps of those, and then it starts repeating again. Yeah, so that then repeats. I don't think I did 20 of all of those. Doesn't feel like it. I think I probably only did 10 because they will drift between all of the journals. That's a butterfly combo. This is the rabbit combo, which we may have already seen in amongst my gluing. Yes, we have. So I picked that page, and I'm pretty sure I did like 15 of all of these. So I've got a good quantity of them, and that's the birds from the bird kit. Yeah, they're all the same. So there's a little bit of gluing to do yet. This element is just some script page. So just a few of them. They will probably be used to be torn up and decorate with, so they won't need backing. If we want to make ephemera and we want some scrap paper to sort of tear up that sort of matches everything, these are just some pages I printed out, so they don't get backed. They're going to be used as decorating elements. So I'll just put them to one side so we don't use those. So that's where we're at with the creating of ephemera. So these bags will get even more bits and pieces put into them to really bulk them up. Then we've got to decorate them. So it's at least a start. So I'll just pop that out of the way. Do you ever feel like your craft room is closing in on you? I do at the moment. I've got Jessie Chorley over that way. I've got Roxy Creations Journal of Stitchery over that way. I've got the journals for the charity that way. And behind me is just a mess, absolute mess. But anyway, we love it. Okay, what do I want to do next? I want to glue down the pieces for the little envelope journal that's going on the inside cover. So we'll quickly do that because that's going to be a little task for the girls to do when they arrive. And there's 20 of them waiting for them. So we'll just get that little job done. Using my art glitter glue, just whizzing around the outer edge of the little plates. I have to watch my time because I don't want to go too long and the video will be huge and it'll just take forever to get it up, but we'll see how we go. So I showed you in video number 2 how to create this little journal. All I'm doing now is the pages that decorate it, the scrapbook paper, has been stitched around. Another little job we did. Oh, we did some sewing on that sewing machine. Luckily I have 2. My real old girl from when I was 15, my first sewing machine, she's still hanging in there. And then a slightly better one that I probably bought 25 years ago, which just had more stitches. My first one was pretty basic, but the next one allows me to do a lot more decorative stitches, which I do use in journals. So I had Gabrielle over just for the day by herself and we set up the 2 sewing machines and just went for it. We spent hours. We were so sore between the shoulders from leaning in, but we did it. We got a heap done. There's still heaps more to do, but we certainly made a good start because not only did we stitch the scrapbook paper that I've cut to use within the journal, we also figured out the elements going into the signature itself because we hadn't yet done that. And I'd printed off pages and they were now cut to size and ready to have the stitching on the sewing machine done. So yeah, that was so much work. Not that I'm complaining, it's great fun. We had a great day. So, but it was so good just to get it out of the way. Now that I've gluing my last piece on, it's slightly different colors to the rest because that'll be at the front. That's done. So that'll be a little job for someone to do. The prototype is completed. We will then work out how we're going to use this piece. As I said, it's going into the front of the cover and we will cut it open. We'll definitely do a journal card at the back. So I'm gonna cut the top of the envelopes open like so. So that now opens up to create a pocket on the back page. We probably won't do anything there. Let me just think about it. I'm just going to get the cover. I'm going to make sure we've got enough room for our piece. Let me put that back in there. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut the front page side open to expose a pocket. So we will have 2 journal cards needed. Once that's glued in there, we will have a journal card that come out the back. That one will stay closed, but they could open it if they wanted because they'll see what we've sort of done, or they'll just leave it solid. And now I've opened the side pocket up as well. Okay, so then it's just a case of, now we've done that, going around it and making sure that the envelope's integrity is holding up. You might find that corners sort of open up a little bit, like because we've cut it, so it might be an important part of the envelope that now swings open, which sometimes does happen depending on how good the envelopes are. That's pretty good. Okay, so that little element's done. So that's a little task I can give someone in the room. We'll be putting pockets and like I said, make some journal cards for them. So that's ready to go for someone to pick up. Now, I just wanted to start prepping the actual cover a little bit more. First of all, I'll show you the signature. So we've finally got that together and it's stitched. We've got our piece of cardstock that we chose, and there's 2 in it. We then got some general paper, and we're doing a page that's going to have a flip out or a tuck spot. So I think there's 3 pieces throughout the cluster of pages that we've done like that. So I've got a few options. We can put something there that it flips out, or we can glue it down and it's a little side tuck. And then this side is just a standard page. So that's page number 2. This is just a little printed piece that we're adding in to add the look of old book page or ledger paper. Then we have a scrap of scrapbooking paper that come off the bottom of this when we cut it. Like that was the length of the page. So we're going to use one of those. It's been stitched. It'll have some pockets added. It's just a little page to pop out. Then we've got another one of that combination, a flip or a tuck. Then we've got some printed dictionary page, part of My Porch Prints. They've got a little file in there that has roses on it that you can see. There's a yellow lady. This one, which is a lot plainer. It's a lovely, lovely little element to add to journals. We've got 2 of those types of pages. We've got a little doily in there just for something interesting. This is a page you saw in a previous video. It's just a piece of paper that has grid on it for making notes. Then we've got our music paper. Here's another one of those My Porch Print pages with the roses. Just to pop that in there. I think it's like dictionary paper. Then we've got another of our flip or tuck elements. So as I said, there's 3 of those in the little journal. Then we've got our antique book page, the French, another page of grid in there, and then we meet our piece of scrapbook paper to sort of sit in the middle to anchor it all together. So I'm just going to line them all up as I go, checking that everything's up the right way, and then I'm going to apply some bull clips because then I know that this is ready to stitch in. So just working my way back through. So I've got a little bit of everything in the journal. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that looks. That's why I run back through. We've gone and created this for all of the journals now. Gabrielle and I did. They're yet to be stitched in. They're yet to be, you know, added to the journal. That's what I'm doing today with you guys, so that when the girls come, someone can be given the task of getting everything in the journal ready to go. So I'm going to pre-prep that, seeing it's in my hands. Whether I do it on camera for you, there's so many videos out there of how to do that. All right, let's do a little bit of work on the cover. I have a template that I created some time ago that is for these little books. So I just keep it, it's my Reader's Digest template. It shows me exactly where to put the 3 holes in the spine for stitching in the signature. And it also gives me a point of which I can add a little, what do they call these things? Ring fasteners. They're from Tim Holtz, and this is what I use to hang little fibres and yarns from. So I've marked my holes. So I'm going to poke some holes now just to move us along a little bit. So another job for one of the girls when they come. So I'm just going to use my book awl and poke the 3 holes for the signature stitching plus the one I use for the Tim Holtz book awl. Okay, because we need that little book awl hole in before we do too much more, because it's sort of then going to be hidden by the calico that sort of finishes off the center of the book. So I'll just open it up. Well, it is open. I'm closing it. You see, if you haven't seen these things before. Oh, excuse my fingers. The dyeing of that paper. I look like I've got dirty fingernails, but I don't. It's just Parisian essence. Okay, it took me a day to do that paper. Okay, so it's through the little hole. Then it's just a case of opening the back up so that it's hidden. All right, so now I'm going to glue down. I'm just thinking I'm going to glue down these next. So they're in position. Lots of glue. Actually, I need to stop. I've made a step I've missed. So let's just take a breath, because I want to put a fastener on this. And I like the fastener to be tucked under that. So I need to pick some seam binding that suits. If you're wondering what this is from Bunnings Hardware. It's, the boys use it to hold all their nuts and bolts in it, and it's got lots of little containers. Well, sometimes I use the containers and sometimes I don't. So I use them all the time for holding my craft supplies. Where's my cover? I need to match. Oh, I like that. This is seam binding. I will link down below the store on Etsy that I buy it from. She's really reasonably priced. She's got hundreds of colours. Well, not hundreds, I'm exaggerating. Plenty of colours. So I sort of get some neutrals and a bit of a mix so that I'm sort of ready to go in the way of seam binding for any journal. I'm going to use about that much. All right, that was nearly crucial. So I get rid of the seam binding. That's because I'm doing 2 things at once here, talking to you guys and trying to make sure I don't jigger it up. So I'm going to cut that in half. Now that length that I've cut there is probably about 16 inches by 2, so 32 inches, but when cut 16 inches. So we're going to find the middle, which is about where are we? Probably about there. Pop a little bit of glue just to hold that there for a moment. Same on the other side. I like putting the seam binding under that piece of paper because it's then really secure, especially if the journal goes to a young person who might be a little bit heavy-handed. At least you know that their little tie is going to hold. Okay, so now we can go back to gluing down our plates. Okay, let's just put lots of glue. I need to keep an eye on the time to make sure I don't go too long once I start gas bagging. Okay, lots of glue. All right. There we go. Beautiful. So that catches the seam binding. Lovely. Now the other one. I'm just going to touch my iPad, see how long I've been going. Okay, got a little bit more time. So another job for someone, they can grab all the covers and do this stage. Seam binding secured in and the plates also glued to the inside of the cover. So it's all about breaking it down into small little bite-sized tasks so it just doesn't feel so daunting. As you all know, there's a lot that goes into making a journal, and when you're multiplying it by 20, it's enough to give you nightmares. So there is the second one into position. So that's sitting lovely. Okay. And then this little guy, when we're ready, will go into here. I won't do that yet because I'm yet to stitch the pages in, and it's such a process to manhandle that. To have this flipping around is just, I just don't need that extra hassle at the moment. Okay, so that's in place. My holes are in place, which technically I shouldn't have done yet. I'm sure you're screaming at the camera going, don't do that yet, you haven't put your calico. But we should be able to find them because they're quite good holes, so I'm not too concerned. And I can come from the other side with my book awl. So I use a little bit of my glue stick first because it is suitable for paper. But I also go through and add a little bit of art glitter glue to my gap that's in the seam of the spine, because that really needs to be secure. So I want to know that there's a bit of glue in there, but I don't want it to sort of seep through my fabric as well. So you do need to smear it a little bit, because otherwise you get that wet look through your fabric. So now that's our little piece of calico in there, covering up everything in the spine. Now getting my ruler, I want that calico to go down into those little edges. Just helps it to bend. Okay, another job for someone in the group. Add the calico to the spine. Get my fingers in there to make sure that that's sitting nicely. And then it's just a case of if there's any little edges up, just a very thin line of art glitter glue to secure that down. Okay, love it. Okay, that's done. And technically then, if I'd done this correctly, I would grab my template and make the holes for the signature, which I've already done, and I can feel them there, so it's not going to be an issue. And if you are concerned, I could come back through this way because they are visible this side as well. So that's the cover, pretty much ready to have the signature stitched in. All right, lovely. Now I'm not going to do this. I was going to do it on camera, the signature being stitched in, but I really want this to dry. It feels not too bad. Let me at least get the holes ready because we've got the pages secured in position. So I'm just using my template now to mark my 3 holes. And I just want to use my ruler just to make sure that everything is tight into the seam. So I'm just going to release that bull clip to take a bit of pressure off. And I'm going to actually transfer it to the side. There's a page there sticking out. It could be moved. No, it's all good. So I'm applying pressure with the ruler to really force it into the edge, or into the center of my book. Whoops. More bull clips. You can never have enough. I just don't want anything to move because I just want it to be perfectly positioned. I'm pretty confident I've got everything up the right way. I've got my dots in the center there marked. Grab my book awl, and we're going to keep the pages folded up in your hand like I've got it. Don't open them flat and make your holes, because you're changing the angle of your hole, and it'll be completely different when you go to fold it all up and add them to your journal. So hot tip there, keep everything angled in your hand. Alrighty, so now I need some, did I get my pin out, my needle? Need some thread. So I use wax linen thread, nice and strong and a great product to use. I just use the thread that is on Amazon. Now where is my needle? A blunt tapestry needle is what you need. So I'm just grabbing that. I've got a little box here with everything I need to do the stitching in signature process. So in there is a needle which has a nice blunt end on it, so it's pretty much a tapestry needle. Now we're going to everything up the right way. Yes, yes, through the center, through the center, through the top, through the top of the pages, pull that through. Now down to the bottom. If you want someone who's really fantastic to watch for stitching in signatures, Nick the Booksmith channel. She is great. And she's obviously formally trained in this, because she, real old school techniques of how they do signatures. Now I'm just tucking that under there. How they stitch in signatures back in the day. So even if you don't apply some of those techniques to the journals that we make today, because it's, you know, a little bit overkill, it is really interesting to watch the way she is so precise in restoring books and making her journals. Really, really, really good to watch. Okay, so as you saw, I removed my clips because I want the journal now to sit flat and the pages to sit flat, and make sure everything is lined up and firm. So I'm just going to now do a couple knots and make sure that that's nice and secure, and then just snip it off. I'm going to leave a little bit of length at this stage, just in case I want to undo that to adjust it in any time, but when I'm finished that'll be snipped off a little bit shorter, but at the moment I'm going to leave it. If I use cord that isn't waxed, I sometimes have a little extra length and I'll put beads and buttons on the end of that, but I'm not going to this time. It's beads and buttons is just, you know, a whole nother process again, so I want to keep this reasonably simple. So I will cut these off at this height. All right, so now I can start going through each of the pages, folding them over and making sure that everything is sitting nice and flat in our little journal. There you go, another job for another one of those girls. As we just work our way back through. So now the fun comes. We can start decorating and working out what elements are going to go where. Oh, I love it. That's looking really good. And then back this way. Everything will sit beautifully. It's sitting nice and flat, which is great. And back we come to the signature. The journal will find its place. These pages will settle. We're back to the middle. Some of the pages I will put the pretty bit in the middle. Others I'll have the plainer side, so there'll be pockets here with lots of bits and bobs in there for them. Okay, so there's our little journal. That will now be able to be glued in there. So let's do that. I'm going to do a combination of this glue. I must check that this is up the right way too before I get too crazy. Otherwise, yeah, we'll have pockets going out the bottom of the book. It has happened in the past, but I think I'm pretty much right to go. Is that the pocket? Yep, that's top. So that now will sit there. And I'll just bring it to the bottom of the book page, the cover, so that we've got a bit of room for the tag that'll be poking out the top. Okay, we've got a little bit of room for something to poke out there. All right, where's my... Alrighty, I think that is really good. We're now moving along. There's plenty there for the girls to help me out with. Oh, last thing I'll do is, before I forget, this seam binding can fray easily. So I'm just going to put a tiniest little smear of glue along that edge. And that'll just stop the binding from just slowly coming apart. So that's my last little job to do. Just a little bit there. All right, clean my fingers, get that glue off. Put my stopper back in. All right. Okay, everyone, we will leave it at that. Got plenty there for the girls to go on with. I hope that was all in camera. I was trying to concentrate so much on putting this together that I probably am out of shot, but I hope not. We've got our ties in. We've got our little photo section in. Pages are in. She's starting to look like a little journal. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll leave it at that, and probably in about a month's time we'll get together again and we'll show you what we've are going to do next. I'm trying to stay in front of those girls, so I will keep you posted. Okay, talk to you all soon. Bye.